Hey everyone, and welcome to the Atomic Cinema Experiment. I am Peter, and joining me as always is Tara.
Greetings, citizens.
This is a science fiction movie podcast. Every episode we get together, we talk about a science fiction film of some kind. This episode is actually a Patreon vote winner, because every month on patreon.com/MailFuzzTV, our patrons at the $5 tier and up will vote between 4 films. This particular vote was all 4 movies where action heroes or action stars were in a science fiction film. There was one Stallone, one Van Damme, so on and so on. The winner, of course, was Total Recall, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger. This is the original, of course, 1990, Paul Verhoeven directed. We will start spoiler free as we always do. We'll give you a warning before we get into the spoilers. And
do you think it was Arnold Schwarzenegger that won the poll, or was it Paul Verhoeven that won the poll?
I think it was Michael Ironside that won the poll, if I'm honest.
I've decided I'm going to name my son Ironside. It's the coolest name in Hollywood.
It's pretty good. It's pretty good. I mean, I was tempted to say I think they voted for Sharon Stone, but I thought, you know what? No, our patrons are exactly the nerdy crew who would go for Ironside over Sharon Stone. This is not about attractiveness. No one picks Michael Ironside because he's attractive. They pick him because he has presence.
Yes, a great voice, but mostly a great name.
And also a great skill. He skills really well. He's got this,
yeah,
the eyebrows.
Right. He's got the permanent angry face.
Yes.
And it's something about the smile too. The smile never comes off as trustworthy.
Nah, it's always like he's plotting and scheming and.
Or he's just won something.
Yes.
Through evil means.
Yes. Yes. And what an illustrious career he's had. Went on to star in the hit film Terminator Salvation, which we also already reviewed, so you can go check out our discussion on that.
At least he got to do a Verhoeven movie.
That is true. He's done a He's done a Cronenberg movie as well.
I heard this movie was almost a Cronenberg.
Do you know, that doesn't surprise me given some of the things that are in it. I'm thinking the body horror stuff. I could see Cronenberg doing this. I could see Cronenberg's version being a little less mainstream, in the sense that I could see it being less, I don't want to say coherent, but like...
There's something about Verhoeven films that are like bubbly and pretty looking, but also just so grotesque, and it's a strange... Verhoeven, he has a look.
Yeah, Verhoeven knows how to make something feel kind of pulpy and adventurous, despite the fact that it's also got these very sort of, big science fiction themes. I mean, I think casting Arnold in your lead role also kind of adds to that a little bit. It's hard to think of like a cerebral film and it's Arnold Schwarzenegger who's in the lead role. Casting him does give it more of a playful vibe, maybe, than it did have before. But yeah, what is Total Recall, if you didn't know? I mean, because it's from 1990. I mean... you're not old like us. Like you may be someone who's like just hitting 17 and going, I'm watching movie reviews on the internet and I want to know what this is. Well, listen out, youngins. This is a film where Arnold wakes up next to his wife, which is Sharon Stone, and he really wants to go to Mars. He really wants to go to Mars. And this is in the future, where that's normal, as are the moons of Saturn. Well, they never actually say the moons of Saturn. They all just keep saying Saturn. I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt, and assuming they mean the moons of Saturn and not literally on the planet.
Probably like Titan or something. Right?
Yeah. So that makes sense. But he wants to go to Mars, and the wife's like, no, that's no. We'll talk about this later. She's really not for it. But he sees an ad. He's on the subway or the tram or whatever futuristic version of this is, and he sees an ad for Recall, which is this like memory implant. So you can't afford a proper vacation. You can pay for like a fake one, but it'll feel real in your head. Like you'll have had it, and you'll have all the memories.
And not just that, but you'll have had the perfect vacation. No kids screaming around you. No obnoxious taxi drivers. It's all like the weather's always nice.
Yeah,
it's a pretty good deal.
So he goes for this, and then unfortunately though, when they try and put it in, they discover there's someone's already basically messed with his mind. There's already like memories that have been taken away, and the film's kind of about this mystery where he seems to be someone who has been on Mars before, despite the fact that he doesn't remember being on Mars, and he's part of some sort of conspiracy, some kind of agent aligned with some sort of villain, but part of some sort of resistance, and there's people after him trying to kill him, Michael Ironside being the leader of that group, and ultimately ends up going to Mars, and there's a whole plot and twists and turns, and yeah, so that's basically it. So obviously we'll save the rest for spoilers, and we've both seen this before, of course. This is something that I'm sure we both grew up on. But Tara, how do you feel about Total Recall?
Yeah, it's still great. I've seen it many times. It's a great movie. I will say, when I have seen it before, I've seen it many times, like before the age of 12. And so even though I knew all the scenes and all the dialogue, for some reason this time I got so much more out of it.
I actually agree with that. I don't know if it was necessarily this time or maybe the last time I watched it, because I have the Blu-ray. I think I watched the Blu-ray when I got the Blu-ray in like 2011 or something like that. So you know, I definitely have watched it as an adult. Not recently. That was 9 years ago now, but it's as an adult. But I do think I think I didn't like this as much as a kid as some of Arnold's other movies, because I was an Arnold fan. I watched a lot of Arnold movies. I think this one, while it had a lot of cool things in it, I don't think I liked it as much as a kid, because I think the plot was actually just a bit too confusing for a kid.
Definitely.
There's a lot of
I was thinking that too. I was like, wait, this is an implanted memory? I don't think I remembered that as a kid.
Yeah, I feel like as a kid I couldn't follow kind of the logic of the memory and the fake memory, but then like, he wanted another memory, and like I actually think watching it as an adult, it's easier to follow. Well, yeah. But the point being is that you follow the story better. It makes a bit more sense. I don't think it's perfect, but I do think it's really enjoyable. I think it holds up better. Because of that, I feel like it holds up better than I remember it holding up. Because it's actually better than I thought it was as a kid. So that's good. It's still not Arnold's best, though. I mean, you know, it's not Terminator, and it's not maybe one or two other things like Predator, for example. I think we make both sides.
Yeah, but we get so much Arnold like
one-liners,
yell grunting.
Oh, we get grunting, yells. We get like 3 good one-liners after deaths. Well, we'll get to what they are in spoilers, but oh baby, there's a couple of great ones. And and you know, we get it's an all-star cast. I mean, even the main bad guy, the politician who's like running Mars, Cohagen, he's played by Ronny Cox, who you might know as the boss, or not even the boss, like the main bad guy from RoboCop, or Axel Foley's boss from Beverly Hills Cop. And apparently he's still working. I clicked on his name just before you came on, and like he's still in stuff in like 2020. He's quite really strong. Yeah, he's an old man now, obviously. I mean, he looks like a relatively old man in this movie already, to be honest, but he's still going. He's an ancient man now. I
really know from RoboCop. I've seen Beverly Hills Cop, but it's been a while.
No, I grew up watching those too, so I've got pretty vivid memories of all those appearances. But yeah, he's in Beverly Hills Cop 1 and 2, I think, if I remember right. Because he's not his boss at his precinct. His boss at his precinct's, I don't know, I can't remember his name, but he's the fast-talking loudmouth. He's the boss at the Beverly Hills precinct. Not that it really matters.
Okay.
This is just before people correct me. It's like, oh, I wasn't his boss. Well, okay, technically it wasn't, but it was the boss at the other precinct.
Okay.
Anyway, right.
Everyone delete your comments now.
Yes. Michael Ironside, the bad guy from Twins, is like got a small role in this as well. He's like one of the resistance dudes. More on him in spoilers.
I was wondering where I knew him from.
Yeah, that's him. Because I don't trust him when he pops up, because I know him as the pure villainous dude from Twins. And because Twins is like a light-hearted movie, except him, because he's like this really dark character in Twins.
Yeah.
I don't trust him. He's so menacing. But
those green eyes.
Yeah, I guess he got the Arnold, like the twofer. You got to do 2 Arnold movies. I was like, yeah, he was good. We'll bring him back for this movie. I don't know which one was first, but I'll say Twins. I think Twins was first, but
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, and then Melina, the love interest, not to be confused with the wife. More on that later. She's actually one of the few big few big characters in this that I don't recognize the person at all. You know, aside from this movie. That said, now that I've clicked on her name, the second thing she's known for is Con Air, and as soon as I read that, I'm like, oh yeah, I could see her at Con Air. So
I don't know who she is.
Fair enough. The actress's name is Rachel Ticotin. And And yeah, she's still working. She's done a lot of TV shows.
Good for her.
In the last several years, so. Pretty packed cast. Paul Verhoeven, of course, fairly fresh off of RoboCop.
It has to be pretty recent or pretty quick after that.
RoboCop was 87. This is 90. Did he do something in between those two, or was it this like straight after? This was straight after.
I don't know.
This was his.
Okay.
This was his next film.
I heard that that Schwarzenegger went after him because he watched RoboCop and liked the style of it so much.
Oh.
That they went. Yeah, Schwarzenegger, like when Cronenberg wasn't involved, Schwarzenegger got involved and said, I want to work with Verhoeven.
What's interesting about that is that the first trailer for RoboCop actually used the Terminator theme.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. So there's a weird kind of cyclical thing there.
Was it just a da-da-da-da-da?
I think so. It's been a long time since I've seen it, but I remember like I heard that the first teaser for RoboCop had the Terminator, because it was Orion Pictures who did Terminator, was doing RoboCop, of course. And funnily enough, this movie's at least one of them. Carolco, yeah. I mean, TriStar as well, and obviously now TriStar is Columbia TriStar because it's merged with Columbia and they're Sony. But like, a convoluted web of movie studios and their histories. But
that's okay. They're all about to go away, and it'll just be Disney, and then we won't have to worry about it.
Well, I've got worries for that future. Just not the same worry. Let's talk about music. I want to talk about the music a little bit because
music's pretty good.
Yeah, Jerry Goldsmith did the score, who of course is an old-timey composer. Old-timey, that's his bad. He did Alien. He did a bunch of big movies. He actually, Joe, it's funny. He almost did the Superman score, and then for some reason he couldn't do it. So, because I was watching an interview like years back, it was Richard Donner who directed Superman and Christopher Nolan. They had like this sort of sit-down conversation with each other, and Donner was telling the story how they almost had Jerry Goldsmith and they couldn't get him, and Christopher Nolan just says, "Oh, so you had to make do with John Williams." But Jerry Goldsmith went on to do the Supergirl movie score, which isn't as prolific, but it's got a good score. Like if you listen to that music, it's clearly from someone who knows what they're doing.
Didn't he do like a bunch of Twilight Zone episodes too that we've watched already?
Oh yeah, probably. He did The Mummy from 1999. Up until his time of his death, he was very prolific. He did a bunch of stuff. This is actually from a time where movies had opening title sequences, so most movies had like a main theme, even if the main theme didn't really appear that much in the movie itself. And that's an example. Right. Now, don't get me wrong, I prefer if the main theme does show up at least once in the movie properly, but this does have the big main theme at the start, which then goes into the end credits as well. But this is a main theme that I always forget about until I start and then the drums sort of kick in and the strings kick in, and I'm like, oh yeah, I remember this music, and I always forget about it.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting.
Yeah,
it's a good score.
It's good, yeah. And another thing I think we have to talk about is the overall design of some of this, because we're in a future where everything's a set pretty much, because they're either on in the domes on Mars or even on Earth. We're in kind of like, I describe it as everyone.
Future.
Yeah, they kind of live in kind of
80s future.
Yeah, everything looks like inside of a shopping mall, I guess I'd describe it as, but like a futuristic shopping mall.
Yeah, or like a shopping mall that's inside of a subway. Not like a sandwich place, but like a place where you catch the subway.
Yeah, I think we got that. Yes. And of course, the big X-ray like security gate where they're walking through. We have this goofy visual effect of the skeletons walking past.
I know, it's so funny.
it's charming though. I think most of the practical effects really hold up. I
agree.
They look
it's some
really
of the
good.
best, I think.
Because when we get to Mars, we get to like mutants, and we get to. I mean, everyone remembers the three boobs. The three-boobed lady.
How can you forget?
It's that's what it is. Which I guess is an easy thing to cast for in a sense, because it's technically not actually doing a topless scene, even though it is kind of, but it's not, because her real boobs are covered, so she wouldn't feel that insecure. So
right. No, it's definitely like a full piece.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
all
not
three of them are fake.
It's not like they add one to the middle. It's not like they go, okay, we'll just separate these two and plop this one in.
I don't know. Is this? It's just. I don't want to ask this question.
Go on. Give me the question.
Is this a thing that men want to see?
I can't
Or
speak
is
for
it just fascinating because it's boobs and that's all?
I can't speak for anyone else, but what I will say is that I have never found this remotely attractive. Does that answer your question?
I mean, it leads to a great line, but
Oh no, it does. Yeah, I wish I had three hands. Yeah, there might have been a cut there because we were giggling too much about three boobs. So no, but we have
it's
like
such a Verhoeven thing to have.
yeah, it's like Verhoeven. I mean, this next movie was Basic Instinct, and like I might have cut out a lot of the jokes earlier about a certain scene in Basic Instinct with the legs crossing because we're a classy podcast.
We are.
But I mean.
And there are children present. I watched the other Verhoeven one that I've seen, which isn't like a American one, is it's called Black Book, I think.
Yeah, I've not seen it, but I remember that coming out.
Which is it's a movie that was filmed in the Netherlands, and it's about about the Dutch when it was occupied by the Nazis. And it follows just a Jewish woman and the things that she has to do to survive, basically, during that time. And also, like, falling in love with an SS officer, but also, like, being part of a resistance. And the woman, she's played by... Oh, her name is Clarice something? Ooh, she plays the Red Woman in the Game of Thrones series, so I'm sure everybody listening or watching would know what I'm talking about except for Peter. But it was very good, but it still has that like just hint of Verhoeven overly sexual.
Yeah.
And it might just be like the attitude of where he comes from. Like, this just isn't a thing here like it is in the US. So, when we watch it, it's a little bit like, whoa, we're going there, okay, but like maybe the Dutch don't have that, the same.
I mean, because obviously even Hollow Man has a couple of pretty extreme scenes, despite the fact that it's a pretty mainstream like sort of horror thriller for the most part, or sci-fi. Because it's a sci-fi. We could probably do that at some point. I mean, it's about Invisible Man.
Definitely. We did the Invisible Man.
Yeah, so Hollow Man makes sense, but like
unless you do it for screams.
Not Hollow Man, I don't think. No.
You don't think so?
No. The new Invisible Man's definitely a horror movie because they're definitely going full, like, stalker. Like,
yeah. It's Blumhouse. So.
Yeah. It's Blumhouse. If it says Blumhouse, we're going to assume it's horror. I mean, that could backfire occasionally, but for the most part, that's going to work out okay. But, like, Hollow Man has a couple of extreme sequences, right? Like he is definitely a director who says, okay, we've got an invisible character, we're going to have him rape someone and sort of see like the horror of that. Like he's definitely a director to do that, and I think maybe it's like not so much specifically Holland, but maybe it's like Europe is because you have H.R. Giger, right? Who everything he did for Alien is all penises and vaginas and. Maybe it's just mainland Europe's just a very sexualized place. They're all just obsessed with body parts. They're all obsessed with
maybe
just all the bits we're not supposed to show on TV. That's the bits they're all obsessed with, right? They're a bunch of horny buggers, the lot of them.
I mean, Black Book is actually a really decent movie, but it does have that sprinkle of the Verhoeven. I don't want to call it, it's not perverted. It's just like, this is not a big deal to show. So we're just going to go ahead and show it.
Casual kink. That's what I'm going to call
it. Okay. I said, a bit too fast. I said yes to the casual part. It definitely belongs in this time, though.
Sure.
Verhoeven feels like in the 80s, even though this is 1990, it's like the tail end of the 80s,
Yeah, it's just that transitional year before like the 90s kind of solidified what the 90s was.
Verhoeven feels like this era.
One of my things with the 90s actually is how it's kind of lacking for its own identity, because it kind of feels like a transitionary decade between the 80s and the 2000s where the 80s had such a strong voice across the board that the 90s didn't know how to... The 90s
are like, okay, everybody, just cool your jets. We're just going to cool things off a bit.
But some of that 80s stuff kind of still bleeds through, so it ends up feeling kind of like this weird, I don't know, like aftermath of like a proper era, as opposed to being an era on its own.
It's like the like the withdrawal period from all the coke that everyone did in the 80s.
And then the 2000s is kind of sterile for my liking, grey and brown and all that stuff. And this is the thing, it wasn't even just movies. Video games were the same way. Like video games, like before the PS4 and Xbox One, like that Gears of War and all that. Everything was brown. All the Call of Duties were all brown and grey. Like everything was just dull and depressing.
Yep.
And then thankfully this past decade we were able to bring some color back into
Yes.
back into things.
I know. I've been playing Doom a lot. This movie makes me want to play it again.
Well, it's on Mars. It's on Mars. And not even just that, there's ancient artifacts and shit.
I know. I keep expecting like a little red fire blob to like spawn a cacodemon and like, get out my gas cannon. Anyway, been playing a lot.
You're such a dumb nerd. Yes, so but I was talking about the design of the sets and the various creatures I like. Obviously a lot of practical stuff, which is really good. I did laugh at the self-driving cabs because it made me think of Time Cop, even though Time Cop didn't have the little mannequins at the front that says I'm a Johnny Cab or whatever he said. I can't remember what it was.
I recognize the voice of the actor who does it. It's Robert Picardo from Star Trek Voyager, who plays the ship's emergency medical hologram in Star Trek Voyager.
I wonder, see when they cast him for Voyager and he's in the room and they're looking at his name on the call sheet and they're like, Picardo? We have to cast him, right? We have to do it, right? Just because it's funny.
Do we have to call you Captain?
Yeah. He's even got the same like head as Patrick Stewart.
Yeah.
So same hairline.
Patrick Stewart really paved the way for bald men in Hollywood.
Yeah. It was okay to be bald after Patrick Stewart.
It's true. You know he had an audition with a wig on?
I did not know that.
Yeah. He had an audition with a wig on. He had a toupee. It's out there somewhere. It looks ridiculous.
So, did he think they would only cast him if he had hair? So he was trying to trick them, or
Roddenberry did not want to have a bald captain because he thought that in the future mankind would have cured baldness, which is the thing people with hair would say. But
like, it's someone who doesn't have a great hairline, right? I don't think we need to spend time curing baldness. All right.
I don't think so either.
It's fine.
It's always been okay.
I mean, if we're talking about perverts, Gene Roddenberry in those later years,
he's at the top.
He was a sick pervert. Watching Next Generation for the first time, like having done the first 2 seasons now, some of the crap he was.
Once you get to that planet with all the curly-haired blonde people, you're like,
yeah, and then just Tasha Yar's backstory, like everything about it, just nothing but devious sexual escapades going on. So but yes, Total Recall. I guess we're at the point that we're going to just work through the movie and talk about the various happenings and spoilers and so on. So I will take this time to thank our patron producers for the month. So thank you to David Short, Tyler Hess, Alison M. Fordyce, and Cindy Palacios. So thank you to you guys. Tara, why don't you tell them how what a patron producer is and where you can become a patron producer and where you could maybe just be a regular patron.
Sure.
Cue,
if you like what we do.
Cue the Patreon segue to Tara.
Smooth. Real smooth. If you like what we do and you want to support the channel, you can check out the Patreon page. It's patreon.com/MilefuzzTV, and donating as little as $1 per month will get you bonus episodes of our show, which we've already talked about. You can see what the Transfer Saga is all about, though you probably already know because it's the most influential science fiction franchise of all time, as everybody knows. And if you want to get your name if you want to get your name read on our show as a producer, it's $20 a month, I think. Yeah. and kitty cats will cheer for you. Yay!
Yay!
I can't believe he lets you do that.
Firefly lets me away with everything. He really does. Wesker and Garrus not so much, but Firefly is like, yeah, ragdoll me around, I don't care. Like, just keep petting me and feeding me and you can do what you want. That's Firefly's attitude. So yeah.
Only because it's so cold out there right now.
Firefly would be shitting himself if he went outside. He's too scared. Like, see if you open the door or window to your Firefly, he just sort of stares. He's like,
Don't you go out in the outside world?
No, there's beings out there. There's other cats and foxes and things. So yes, full spoilers for Total Recall. So yeah, the opening scene is a dream sequence in which Arnold's on Mars with presumably the love interest from later. I mean, I think the dialogue implies it's her. It was hard to tell though because they've got space helmets on, so you didn't really get a good look at their face. I mean, Arnold, I just know Arnold really well, so I can tell it's him. He's got a very distinct face. But you know, she's got, you know, all her hair's obviously like, tied back because she's in the helmet, and you know, it's not as obvious. But you know, they have like a sort of romantic moment where they sort of look at each other, and then they slip and fall or whatever, and they're rolling down, and we get this great. And I always remember the visual effect, the special effect of this prosthetic head's eyes popping. But what I didn't remember was how much the tongue bulges up as well. That was really good. You know more about the science of shit than I do.
Grotesque.
How accurate is this? Because it doesn't feel accurate to me. It feels kind of like over the top.
Oh, I don't think it's accurate at all, but I don't know.
I feel like if you ended up outside on Mars, you would just suffocate and die. There would be, I wouldn't have thought you had to have this big bulging effect, but I mean, I could be wrong.
I'm not sure. I've heard mixed things about what happens to the human body and if it gets blown out into space, but I don't know. I don't know what's true.
Yeah, okay. So he wakes up next to Sharon Stone, and she's like, "Oh, my poor baby. Would sex cheer you up?
Nightmare. Let me have sex with you."
And he's like, "All right then." But then it's breakfast, and he's watching the news, and he's like, "Oh, let's go to Mars." Like all this stuff with this Cohagen. Like he's telling us like it is, because we hear that there's a resistance on Mars that are sort of doing like small terror attacks, and like they're fighting the government, the agency.
Yeah, there seems to be some kind of a class system on there that's being oppressed, and yeah.
And Arnold's a good little Republican who's like, no, I'm sure he's telling the truth and it's all under control. There's nothing really going on. And he wants to go to Mars, and he kind of, you know, and she very clearly is like, keeps trying to change the subject, sits in his lap, and do you know the one thing I probably didn't notice as a kid that I definitely noticed watching it now as an adult is that both her and then the guy he works with at the end of their scenes give him this look like they're concerned that he's like asking questions about things that he's supposed to be not caring about. I don't think I noticed that as a kid, whereas here I'm like, no, they're clearly teasing that
we're in spoilers.
Yeah, we're in spoilers.
I know this is kind of like the end question.
Yes.
But if people are watching this and they've already watched it, so
sure.
Whatever. Is there a chance that this isn't a dream?
Oh, the opening scene?
I mean, like the movie. Like the opening scene, I assume isn't, but like his experience, is there a chance that this isn't a dream? Because I've looked at this too and saw like she has this look on her face like she's happy, and then the second he leaves, she gets like real serious.
Mm-hmm.
Is it trying to trick us to think that maybe this all isn't a dream?
This all is in a dream.
Isn't
a dream.
I think it's obvious that the movie is a dream, but I think that's what they want us to think.
Wait, you think
but then there's these little things in here, like these books.
No, hold on a second. Do you think the whole movie's a dream?
Well, not the beginning part.
Wait, hold on. Hold on a second.
What, you don't think so?
We're opening a can of worms here. No, I don't.
Oh. I thought it was obvious.
That's why I'm confused, because you're like, do you think they're trying to convince us that it's not a dream? I'm like, what are you talking about? Isn't it a dream? What are you talking about? Oh, this is gonna be exciting now. Okay, I wasn't expecting this.
Well, all right, never mind.
I think we tackle that as we go, because there'll be evidence for and against as we go, I suppose. But so,
but this is like the first sign where it's like, okay, maybe it's not a dream.
I agree, but why would we be thinking? Assuming we're watching it for the first time, why would we be thinking that it is a dream at this point?
Well, at this point, no.
Okay.
Well, no. I mean, obviously, whether or not the events of the film are a dream, this part is real. But like her and his coworker, you're right. They both like have these moments where he's like, he's figuring things out, and this is not the dream part yet.
Oh, okay. So let me just clarify here. So you're not saying the whole movie from when he wakes up is a dream. You're saying when he goes to total or he goes to recall and goes in the chair, from that point on is a dream.
Yes.
Okay. I don't know if I agree with that still, but that's less crazy than your previous what I thought you were saying before.
Well, no, because that was never what I was saying before. This has always been the case.
Oh, good. So, well, no, but I misunderstood. I thought you meant from the start, which is why I didn't understand why you were saying that this was a sign that it's not a dream. I'm like, well, what are you talking about? Of course it's not a dream. Who's saying it's a dream?
Yeah, not this scene.
This is why you listen to the Ace, folks. You listen to for these hot takes,
Riveting.
the debates. So it's Inception, is what you're saying. It's a dream within a dream. No, I'm kidding. Right.
Oh, it's definitely Inception.
Oh God, here we go. All right. So.
And The Matrix.
It goes.
There's a lot of.
He goes to work, and he sees this ad on the way there about recall, and he asks his like mob boss looking friend who works with him, because in this scene establishes that he knows how to use power tools. In this case, it's a big drill that he's using, which is important for later, because one of the best one-liners comes later on when he uses a drill to kill someone. And he's like, hey, did you ever hear about this recall place? I can't do Arnold's voice, so I'm just doing generic character voice.
You want me to do it?
Okay, there you go.
Hey, have you ever heard of this recall place?
Yeah, and then for some reason, one of my memories of this movie that are so vivid is just this guy going, Rico, oh, Rico, Rico, Rico. He does this thing where he sort of sings like the theme tune, and I'm like, well, I've never heard this, so it just sounds silly. Like, what's he doing? Rico,
I don't remember
Rico,
this
Rico.
theme playing in the commercial even.
I know, it's so weird. But he says, nah, they lobotomize someone because they made a mistake, so you shouldn't go there. And he looks all concerned. But sure enough, Arnold goes straight there after work, and he's already made an appointment. He's literally already made an appointment, and he comes in. And I love this idea that's set in the future, and there's a lot of screens, but instead of having a touch screen, like even Die Hard, which came out before this had and wasn't set in the future, this has a big chunky computer keyboard like stuck onto the wall. Love it. It's great.
It's the future. We go back to very tactile senses.
Yeah. So he goes up, and I should mention,
it's like vinyl, it comes back.
The advert.
All of a sudden people are like, it's better this way.
The advert actually for Recall, the actor who was like the presenter in that, I just saw in an episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation, and I commented on that episode that I know that actor from an episode of Lois and Clark, The New Adventures of Superman. He plays the landlord.
It's a very unique voice.
He does. So
easy to pick up.
Indistinguishable as soon as you hear him. And we do see him properly in the flesh later, but yeah, so he's a bit. We have this sort of sleazy, like, used car salesman type guy who's like actually running the show when he goes in.
Yeah,
like,
I was thinking he was very much like a car salesman.
He's like, hey, you want to go on a vacation, but you know you don't want to get shitty cab drivers, you don't want to get ripped off by the food service, you don't want to do this, you don't want to do that. You want 899 credits, and we have no context for how expensive or cheap that is, because we have no idea what a credit's worth, right? 899 credits could be like yen and be almost nothing, or it could be like, you know, $1,000 for all we know. Like or it could be $10,000. We have no idea like where that lands. So
it sounds like a lot.
And even this guy, I actually thought this guy was in on it at first, because I'd forgotten if he was, when because he says, I want to, you know, look at Mars. He's like, now what about Saturn? Because that was the same thing the wife was doing. He's like, no, let's go to Saturn for a trip. He's not, but like the way he kind of tried to sell him on Saturn instead, he's like, okay, fine, you want Mars?
It seems like to me, it just kind of came off like, if you go to Mars, you'll be disappointed. Don't waste your money. Mars is not as good as Saturn. Saturn, you got the rings. You can go to the moon, Titan. Mars is just a dead red planet with nothing to see.
Yeah, and then he's like, okay, I'll take it. And he asks about the lobotomies, and he's like, nah, seriously, here's a chart of like all the fatalities of actually traveling to Mars, and here's a chart of all the fatalities of using recall, and as you can see, we have a flat line. Whereas the traveling
There's
to
no
Mars
danger,
is getting worse. And he's like, okay, you've convinced me. And he's like, let me give you some, optional extras. And this is really, I mean, he already felt like a car salesman, but this was like just really like drawing the parallels. Yeah. And he's like,
gotta get the true coat and the undercoat and the leather seats, power steering.
And Arnold's like, nah, I don't want any extras. Like, yeah, but let me ask you this question. Like, what's the one thing that's always the same in every vacation you've ever taken? You're always you. Why don't you be someone else? Why don't you be a playboy or a sports hero or something? Mm-hmm. And he's like, secret agent. He sees it in the list. He's like, that's the one.
Yeah.
And the opening scene, the dream sequence, and in this, I read this as his subconscious kind of like bleeding through. Even though he doesn't remember these things, he kind of like has this. He gravitates towards them because it is closer to his life for what it was. So
assuming that he was a secret agent before, like something is definitely drawing him to Mars, right?
Yes.
Like even though Saturn does sound like a better place to go to, Mars is like, no, it has to be Mars. Mars is, I'm just drawn to Mars. He has the call of the wild for Mars. Mm-hmm. And he doesn't want any of this extra, BS stuff, bullshit. With the exception of maybe a secret agent. Oh, I could do that. That, for some reason, is calling to me.
Yeah, they set him in the chair, and they're like asking him all these questions so they can mold the story for him. And they're like, okay, what sort of lady do you like? And they give him some options, and he's like, oh, brunette. And he's like, oh. And he's like, what sort of build do you want? What personality do you want? And be honest. And he's like, sleazy. he's like embarrassed to say it. He's like, sleazy.
But demure sleazy.
Yeah. And I mean, I suppose if I'm going along with your argument that the rest of it's just in his head, because this is essentially the trip he's given, that he's paid for. Okay, yeah, the idea that the person on this like little computer screen looks exactly like the woman that he ends up meeting and the woman that he's been dreaming about.
I mean, there's so much here in these scenes, though. Like even the salesman's like, look, I don't want to spoil anything for you, but you could get the girl, you defeat the bad guy, and you save the world. Which, by the way, is huge spoilers. But
I don't know if that general statement's a huge spoiler. It's a movie. Like,
right.
That's
a spoiler of what he's going to experience. So
yeah, I guess I just don't think the movie's like trying to do it, because it feels more straightforward than that. If that makes sense. Like there's a couple of points in the movie where I felt like maybe they were trying to play the idea that, oh, he's still like asleep from before, and like, oh, that's an interesting angle to take this, that he's actually still inside the dream, or he's still inside the recall memory, or whatever. But honestly, there's not a whole lot in the movie that makes me think that it's not just literally what we see, which is in doing this implant of these memories.
I don't know. I think the movie follows the guidelines that the salesman like lays out for him. Not just that, but like there's some kind of tech guy when he's about to go under that says, blue sky on Mars, interesting. But then it gets like talked over by the lady doctor. And that's like literally how it is.
Look, maybe you'll convince me by the end. Maybe you will, but I don't know. Like
I think it's intentionally ambiguous, so you can go either way.
Yeah. Honestly, I've never really even given it thought, though. I've never thought to myself that, like, it's always just made sense to me that this is like just the plot trigger, because to me the real twist of the movie isn't, oh, it's still inside that, him sitting in the chair just getting the memories. The real twist of the movie is that he's really the bad guy, right? That's the real twist of the movie, and why I don't necessarily think it needs this extra twist. But like, I mean, maybe you'll convince me. Maybe you'll convince me as we go through this.
I don't know. I think this movie's layered.
Hey, more layer than the fat woman disguise that Arnold uses later.
Ooh, that's a scene that always stuck with me.
Oh yeah,
watching it as a kid.
The visual of the face coming apart with Arnold's like fake head inside it, like waiting.
So awesome.
It just looks so good.
And she's just like malfunctioning and tearing her face apart, or like pulling at it. You're like, oh, what's happening?
So basically, Arnold freaks out. Oh, by the way, do you like the idea of being able to just change the color of your fingernails by tapping them and just like go doop, doop?
So I don't know. So long as they still don't chip, my nails always chip.
I don't know.
I mean, yeah, nail polish is so much work.
Future technology, I don't know. It's one thing they pointed out. But he basically wakes up in an anger, and they run in and have to like sort of restrain him when he gets out. And he gets scared, and I guess this is maybe why I don't think it's a dream, is because there's scenes without Arnold. Like,
yes, that's also a thing. Like,
yeah,
if it really was his dream, then it should all be from his perspective. But it's not. We have scenes with villains and stuff who are talking amongst themselves.
Well, because what I was thinking here is that after Arnold runs out and like he's berating the two lab techs who are like putting the stuff in. And they're like, okay, he can't, he's just thinking about some of the story we're putting. He says, like, no, it's not possible. We haven't given it to him yet. There's a whole scene of them like arguing about what's happened to him, and it ends with him saying, look, someone took his memories. That could be serious. I'm going to go and erase the fact that he was ever here. You erase everything on this end, and we're going to pretend that we didn't know him because we have stumbled into someone who's supposed to be a secret or something. They're scared of the agency coming after them.
Yeah.
And all of this.
Which does kind of make sense too, because I mean, Arnold Schwarzenegger in like the construction crew with all the other guys looks so out of place.
Oh yeah.
And his wife is Sharon freaking Stone. Like,
yeah.
She's just married to some construction worker.
Yeah, because even her dialogue is kind of weird. Like, where he's like, "Oh, I feel like I'm meant to be more than this." Again, this idea that he has this feeling deep down that he is more than what he is.
Or he just legitimately wants more, and like a bunch of the Twilight Zone episodes we watched, he's just looking for an escape, and this is giving him that.
Yes, but again, then Sharon Stone, again, let me repeat that. Sharon Stone, his wife, says, "You are someone important. You're the man I love." And that's what she says to him. And I'm like,
I mean, I'd say that's a win.
If anything, this is the more like likely to be the dream part of the movie, because Sharon Stone's like, "I love you, husband." Like, come on. Come on now. But he's on the run.
Some people have it.
The friend from work, quote unquote, shows up with a mob of guys with a gun. He's like, "Well, I'm going to have to take you out." But Arnold, like, it kind of, again, his memories kind of, his reflexes almost kick in, and he's able to like kill them all.
He goes into Jason Bourne.
Pretty much, that's essentially how to describe it nowadays. Yeah, blood on the walls.
Sleeper agent. Looks
really good. He goes on the run. He goes home, and Sharon Stone's like got a hologram teaching her how to play tennis, as you do.
It's cool, and like tells her when she has good form.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
It's like a what's that video game where they teach you how to play guitar? It's like that. Rock something.
Yeah, because obviously there's Guitar Hero in that, but there was one that was actually about learning to play guitar that came later. Rocksmith, maybe. Rocksmith,
yeah, I think that's right.
It. Yeah, no, okay, I can see that. So he comes out, he's got his eyes all bloody, and she's like, no, you're just hallucinating because you went to that recall place. That place is bad for you. And he's like, no, look at this blood. And she's like, and it plays this next part really well, where she calls Michael Ironside on the video phone. And what's so funny is that they've got these like little screens built into the walls for like video phone calls, and they're like, what are we doing literally right now? That's so much neater and futuristic. But I like how it's just this where like he gets shot at, but the camera plays it like it's a mystery who's shooting at him, and we just kind of see like the flashlight in the darkness, and it's like a big reveal when it turns out to be her, and he's like, "Honey, what are you doing?" And she's just like spin kicking at him and all sorts. And this is where we get to a moment that I'd forgotten about, and I will now in my head canon in Jurassic Park when we get Clever Girl. He is a fan of Total Recall, and he is quoting Total Recall because in this scene, Sharon Stone basically says, okay, you caught me. He's like, hey, I liked having this assignment. Do you want to go for it one more time, just for old time's sake? And if you don't trust me, and she has this thing with like her spandex, like sort of
just like the
straps.
Velociraptor did to Muldoon.
Try to distract him, yeah.
Try to seduce him, yeah. Or yeah. What you said.
Do we have to review Velocipaster on this just to keep the Velociraptor train going?
Oh, I think I've seen the poster.
Yeah.
That is a real thing, isn't it?
Yeah. Tammy the T-Rex potentially as well. I don't know if Tim's calling dibs on that one. I'll have to check.
Oh yeah,
So
I don't know. I might watch it for fun.
So hey, it's Denise Richards.
It seems fascinating.
Paul Walker and a dinosaur. Anyway, so basically she's trying to distract him, and then he notices behind him. He turns around and sees like Michael Ironside and his goons have shown up, and he's like, "You can do the Arnold voice, say it."
Clever girl.
That was terrible, but yes, it was better than I was going to get there.
That was more Terminator.
Yeah. So
Clever girl. I can't do it.
It's getting closer. So there's a lot of running. There's a lot of ducking into cabs. There's a whole shootout by the X-ray machine and all that stuff. We see them fighting, the skeletons fight, and then they go through the glass and they get away. And what's interesting here is that, you know, after he flees and Michael Ironside and that come out, one of the henchmen goes down to Sharon Stone and is like, "Oh, are you okay?" And Michael Ironside comes up and pushes him out because "Don't touch her," right? And I'm like, wait, they're a thing? And they kiss at the end of the scene. And there's a moment later on when they're getting in the car after like Arnold's gotten away, and like the sort of the second in command, like the dude with the glasses, is with him. It's like, "Hey, yeah, if I was you, I wouldn't want my missus shacking up with that, you know." I can't remember what he called him. I'll just say beefcake. And he's like, "Wait, are you saying she liked it?" And he says like, "No, I'm sure she hated every minute of it."
I'm sure that guy watched Terminator.
What I love about this is that, because we find out later that the main bad guy, Cohagen, doesn't actually want to kill Arnold, but it seems like every chance to get, they're trying to kill him in this first chunk of the movie. But I do like that it's kind of justified by the fact that, no, this is just Michael Ironside going off books because he really wants to kill him.
Yeah. Because he's been, you know, sleeping with his wife.
Yeah. So I do like that part of it. I like that little motivation there. And Michael Ironside's great. Like, he's fantastic.
He's such a good villain.
He is. So basically there's like a mysterious phone call with a case. In fact, yeah, can we talk about this ridiculous old woman who tries to steal the case that's left for him? And she's like,
I love this moment so much.
because Arnold goes to, so he's left this big briefcase by a payphone, which, by the way, there's no cell phones in this future. There's no payphones.
That's okay.
And he goes to get the case, but just before he gets there, this random, like, sort of middle-aged older woman, like, picks it up, and he's like, "Oh, sorry, that's me." She's like, "Oh, get your own case. This is me. I don't see your name on it." And she, like, has
I love this scene. I love it because there are movies where people will just leave a briefcase around, and it's like, aren't you worried that someone else will just take it, like, steal it? Like, hey, free briefcase. Let's see what's inside. Maybe there's money or something valuable. I love that it's just this old granny.
Yeah.
This is mine. Get your own. I don't see your name on it. Arnold. I also like the idea of Arnold having to wrestle with an old lady.
Like, I totally get her just trying to take it because she thinks it's up for grabs, but I think the moment some dude says, "Oh, that's mine, sorry," as if maybe he just walked away a second ago, right? And he's realised that he's left it there, he comes back for it. Most people would go, "Oh, sorry, here you go."
Right, yeah, definitely.
But this woman's like, no, finders keepers.
Is mine.
And this briefcase has a video message from himself pre-memory gone, and the story that he tells himself at this point is that he did work for the bad guy Cohagen, but he turned sides and he teamed up with the Resistance, and he went into hiding because he has knowledge that the bad guy wants, and that's why he's here on Earth. And we actually find out that I think Sharon Stone said at one point that they've been married technically for only 6 weeks, so this has only been going on for 6 weeks, this implant thing.
Right.
But do you know my biggest problem with the "It's a Dream"? You know, it's just the story. is that I think I can't look at Arnold Schwarzenegger and not go, no, he really is a superhero. Like, this has to be true, because he's not just a guy who works at a construction site. That's just not who he is.
Sure.
But I mean,
yeah, I totally get that. Maybe if he was a more normal looking human being and not a god, then...
like, yeah, literally anyone who's not like Arnold or Stallone or maybe like if this was like a Ryan Gosling, I could take him as like a normal. I mean, sure, he's attractive, but
Sure,
he's a normal dude.
Maybe it would be one or the other, and maybe not Sharon Stone. Maybe just like a attractive woman.
Go on, Tara. Name a plain-looking actress. Go on, do it. Give me a plain-looking actress.
Helen Hunt.
Bit of an age difference in this casting that we're doing, but okay.
1990.
Oh, 19. Well, okay, well in that case, it's not Ryan Gosling. Then it'll be.
Oh yeah, that's true.
It's not someone else.
He'd be too young.
Ryan Gosling's at 6 at that.
Ryan Gosling, 1990 Ryan Gosling. Who would that be?
I don't know.
Oh, it might be Michael Biehn.
Oh, now I want Total Recall starring Michael Biehn and Helen Hunt.
That'd be all right, huh?
We got Bill Paxton and Helen Hunt a few years later.
That's true. And Twister.
Yeah. She's making the aliens rounds. She's doing a movie with all the alien cast. So we
Good
got
for her.
we got to get her and Sigourney in a movie. We got to get her and Lance Henriksen in a movie.
Was Jack Death in any of them?
Oh,
Tomlinson.
this movie would be about 10% better with Jack Death.
Yeah, definitely. It would be a 10.
So it sets up a little device here that isn't used until like near the very end, which is this little hologram duplication thing where it kind of makes a duplicate of him over like by, and it kind of mirrors his images, his movements. It's a long time before we use that. It's effective once it is used. I mean, I like the scene that it's used in.
Yeah, but when it does get used, I forgot about it.
So did I, because he has a great one-liner actually in that, because he does a whole thing where he's just a hologram. They all shoot at him, and my only problem with that is that because of where they're all standing and shooting, they really should be hitting each other because they're just sort of like directly across from each other. But whatever. Yeah. And then so the scene goes on. They're doing a bit of game of cat and mouse, and they don't know, is it the hologram, is it not? And at one point, Arnold walks out and goes, "You don't even know if I'm the real Quaid." I am, and he just. I love that moment. That moment is so freaking good.
He starts like cackling, ha 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 ha, I'm a hologram. It's not. Shooting everybody.
That's a legitimately great scene that I'd forgotten existed in this movie. Total Recalls went up in my rankings just from this rewatch.
Definitely.
I mean, is it higher than some of the stuff that I've got up top? No, because like we'll get to Predator someday, but you've heard our 10s for Terminator.
Yes. We'll see how this ranks online.
Ooh.
Maybe it is top tier. Stay tuned to the end. If we ever get there.
We're getting there. Yeah, so he's basically...
He has a lot of plot, that's all.
Yeah, basically it's like go to Mars, and it cuts to a ship landing on Mars, which I guess is maybe the one thing I always felt as a kid is that the movie feels like it just jumps to Mars almost very suddenly, and I feel like
there's no travel.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. But like
all of a sudden he's at customs.
Yeah, on Mars, not like on this side, like the Earth side. Right. But he's on Mars, and he has the woman sort of disguise, and it malfunctions, and it does. And not only does it like the face come apart, it comes apart in like rectangles, which is just a really cool visual. Yeah,
very very cool. Yeah. And you get the fake Arnold underneath it.
Yeah, and we learn about the domes. Now, I do have one critique here of the movie's logic, right? Later on, there's a moment where they're chasing Arnold and Melina. Mm-hmm. And the henchman, the bad guy with the glasses, doesn't take the shot. And then Michael Ironside tries to take the shot, and he has to jump in and stop him. It's like, are you crazy? You'll crack the dome. You'll kill us all. So I have a question. Like, you have domes on Mars that are vital to the survival of every person that's there, and you're telling me they're not bulletproof?
They don't allow guns. That's why they had the sequence on the Earth airport, right?
Okay,
Wait.
okay,
Where they're looking for unauthorized guns.
sure, but here's the thing: if these domes are designed to like take like all the weather conditions of Mars, they have to be pretty durable, right?
That's true. Yeah.
So I don't know. It felt a bit weird to me that.
Well, my logic is that I have a flaw. Is that air isn't made from fans. Fans make wind, but they don't make oxygen.
I mean, I'll buy that the oxygen's getting made further down the pipe, and then this is just distributing it.
I just buy it as like, this is a video game. Arnold is, because I think that this is all a dream. So Arnold is just, this is video game logic.
I get it. You're explaining away plot holes with, it's all in his head, it's fine.
Yep.
That's what you're doing. All right.
Well, it makes sense then if we know that it's a dream.
Yeah, so Arnold gets away and he goes to this, like, he gets the cab driver first, and he goes to this hotel that he's supposed to go to. There's a note in the safety deposit box which leads him to the strip club or the whorehouse or whatever this place is, and that's when we meet Melina and a few other characters. Hey, Foxy, Tara's dog, making a cameo. Making a cameo on the show. So we're in a strip club, and Arnold meets Melina, and she looks excited to see him at first, but wants to get alone in a room. She smacks him, and he's like, "What the hell are you doing here, Quaid?" Blah 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 blah. And he's like, "I don't remember. I don't know you. Like, I know in theory I know you, but I don't remember you. My memory's been erased." And the bad guy wants me, so we have to do things. And she basically tells him to get lost. At this point in the movie, he just kind of goes back to like a hotel room. And the dude from Star Trek that I talked about, who was in the ad for Recall, shows up and tries to convince him that he's actually inside a dream still on the chair, and he's having some problems, and he has to take this pill, which presumably is actually just, some something to knock him out. And
he says we can't pull you out. You have to willingly leave.
Yes. So, and then Sharon Stone shows up and is like, "Hey honey, I'm here, like, it's me, your real wife, and I want you to wake up." And there's a whole moment where he's like, he's considering it, he puts it in his mouth, he doesn't quite swallow it yet, and then he just shoots the guy in the head, like just point blank in the forehead.
There's a bead of sweat that comes down his face, and he's like, he takes that as a sign that he's lying. He shoots him straight in the brain.
I think that's solid logic, honestly. He's lying.
Why would he be on Mars? Why would this character be there?
Because he is the head of Recall, the company, and he was on Mars because him and Cohagen did this in the first place, because as we see later on, they've got their own Recall suite where they're doing all these mind things. He's the one behind all that shady dealings on Mars.
Or he's still in the Recall place and they're about to have another lobotomy victim unless they figure this out, and so they've sent him into his mind or whatever, Inception style. And his wife is also there, and he tells him, if you don't come willingly and you shoot me, you're going to have to deal with the consequences of your reality crumbling before we lobotomize you. Okay, well, you won't be able to tell what's real and what's not anymore. Two things.
One, I think the reason why I never feel this, what you're describing, is because everything that happens in this movie, has this cheesy element to it that you could say, it's like this because it's in the dream, or it's in the, when he's getting the recall. It doesn't feel any... He's
literally in a simulation of a James Bond. Let me
finish my 2 points. So, nothing in this story that he's living out, if he's living a fake story, is actually any cheesier than most of the stuff that Arnold was in at this time in his career, right? They're like late 80s, early 90s. This is on par. This doesn't feel like it's over the top for that era, right?
Oh, I disagree.
No. I'll stop by that. Number two, so you're telling me that this doctor and his real Sharon Stone wife have come into his head Inception style, why then, after he shoots the doctor, does Sharon Stone become villainous Sharon Stone again and try and kill him?
He tells him that that's what will happen. Like, if you shoot me in the head, you have nothing anymore. There's no, we can't take you out of here. The walls are going to come down.
No,
in reality.
But no. You're telling me this Sharon Stone is his real wife who's inside his head Inception style. Why does she specifically start punching and kicking and fighting again?
It's not her anymore. It's his, it's his imagination.
It switches? It was her a minute ago and it switched.
Because he says that will happen if he kills him.
Look, Tara, I will admit that you have something for the most part.
I think you need to rewatch this movie.
I'll admit that you have something for the most part with this theory. I think it's perfectly valid. This moment, though,
I think this Star Trek guy lays it out on the table for him. This point
you're making about Sharon Stone here, though, in defense of my poking holes at it, I don't think it adds up. I think this is the one fundamental disagreement we'll have is this moment.
No, I think it does. I think you need to rewatch this scene. Go rewatch it and we'll come back.
I think you need to rewatch Close Encounters again so we could talk about how it's about communication. All right.
Oh, I see. You're losing, so you're bringing something else up.
Actually, the reason why I'm bringing that up is because I was editing the next part of the top 50 yesterday, and I made a joke about Close Encounters when you brought up Arrival.
Yeah.
So I felt like bringing the joke back again.
Well, I feel pretty good about being right about this movie and you being way wrong.
I think your overall theory is fine. I just think this particular moment, your deduction of Sharon Stone's involvement doesn't add up for me.
What happens is exactly what he says is going to happen.
He does not say.
There's no other reason why this guy would be here on this planet.
He does not say that his wife will turn into an assassin again and start trying to kill him.
He says that you will not have. You won't be able to have any grip on reality anymore. He literally uses the analogy of the walls coming down, and yeah, she is taken away. Like, the real person is no longer in a link with him when he kills him. I
feel this is a far cry from the words you're using here, where you're saying he says exactly what's going to happen. That is not exactly what is.
He says it's just your imagination from this point. Like, even when he's there, he's not really like. I think the bead of sweat is just like is Arnold holding on to him still being a secret agent, and this is something like a Bond villain would do. A Bond villain would have the bead of sweat, not the real guy. So it's muddled, but it's.
See, the problem with this,
it's a dream.
The problem with this is that you're taking anything and twisting it into. Of course, it's a dream because this is the real person wouldn't have this, right? Because what you just said about
it's not too dissimilar from Last Action Hero. Huh? Like, everything the person does in the movie is something that would happen in an action movie, right? And not something a person would do in reality. Here is like the one last grip into reality he has, but he still can't get out of his head that he's a secret agent. So of course the guy, like, who's trying to give him the pill to get him back into reality is has the bead of sweat that goes down. I think that's Arnold's imagination that's putting that there and saying, oh, now I have a reason to kill him.
Can I ask a question?
Mm-hmm.
If let's say you're 100% right? You're 100% right that this is all in his head on the recall chair.
Yes.
What do you think then of the choice at the end of the movie to not like have a final scene where he wakes up or something like that, and instead ends?
The final scene fades to white, like he's dying. Like he's been lobotomized. It's not a fade to black. It fades to white, like he's dying. He's seen the light.
Okay. Okay. Look, I
think it holds up.
I don't hate the theory overall. I think there's the occasional detail here that you're molding.
I'm so surprised that you are not on my side.
That you're molding a little bit. Well, I guess what it boils down to is I don't think this movie is actually that smart. Like, I like it a lot. I love this movie even, right? But I don't think it's smart enough to be pulling this great trick on us, if that makes sense.
I don't know how you don't get this from watching the film.
Which I understand what you're saying to me. I get it. I just don't think it's really doing it.
Okay.
I feel like this scene here to me is the proof that, like, you know, like, because they ponder the idea that, oh, maybe we're still inside, like, just the recall of your head, right? But nothing really in the movie indicates that someone can travel inside to someone's head, right? This is completely out of nowhere in this scene.
Well, no, he tells him that he's making up his reality. Like they have it's like an episode of Curb. Like, here you need to get from point A to point B, but how you get there is all improvised. That is what Arnold is doing inside this Matrix-like dream system that they have.
Yeah, but that's not what I was talking about. I was talking about the Inception-y man, like the scientist,
Right.
doctor
Well,
man.
Arnold knows what he looks like, and he knows what his wife looks like. So they're doing some kind of like a communication, like, we're going to have us in there, but Arnold is the one who's visualizing it.
Okay, all right. I think Camille's expecting you to have this, like, you know, ironclad theory about the whole thing.
I am like so surprised that I'm alone.
No, I mean,
I thought this was like the obvious thing, and then I would have to convince you that maybe it wasn't a dream. But now I'm like, oh no, it's clearly a dream.
what, me not thinking it makes you 100% sure you're right? What?
Well, like, I thought it would be a fun thing to bring up, like the possibility that it wasn't a dream. But
see, that's the thing. Like, I think it's a fun possibility to talk about if it is a dream, but your phrasing flips it around and says, no, it's clearly actually a dream. But that's just for laughter's sake. That's just for the fun of it. Let's talk about the possibility that maybe, just maybe, that this is actually happening.
That's exactly what I'm doing.
Yeah, it kind of comes back to me just it feeling like it's of its time, and nothing in it feels outlandish for a sci-fi action movie of its era, I guess is what I'm saying. Like, everything just feels like, yeah, like, it's like, you know, like,
okay. I mean, literally everything that they said would happen at the recall place happens to Arnold.
Well, everything that happened, everything that Nick Frost says in the pub in Shaun of the Dead happens in the rest of Shaun of the Dead. You're not claiming the rest of that's in someone's head.
Well, no, that's just a fun storytelling technique. But this is like foreshadowing, because they've written the script for him. They've written the program.
I think it's a combination of what I just said about it feeling like it doesn't actually do anything that out of the ordinary for a movie of its era, plus the fact that it's Arnold. I see if this was a regular schmo. See if this was like,
yeah, trying to pass Arnold off and Sharon Stone as like a regular schmo couple is impossible.
It's ridiculous. See if this was,
which is why it works so well in True Lies.
Yeah, like because it's subverting that.
But this movie was only made because Arnold wanted to do it.
Yeah, obviously, but like, okay, forget my example of Ryan Gosling because he's still like a movie star, like good looking, whatever, right? I think who you get for
Maybe
this,
it's Steve Carell.
maybe too joking, but I'm thinking more like who do you get that's kind of frumpy? You know, someone who's just maybe a little overweight, kind of pathetic, in the
David Carradine.
Oh.
1990 David Carradine would have been a little frumpy. He had the beer belly going on.
Sure, yeah, as we witnessed on the recent bonus episode of the Atomic Cinema Experiment, which is this show. You're already on this
Future
show.
Force.
Yeah, Future Force. Yeah, he would have just been like, oh, can you just put me with a rope and some booze, and I'll be a happy man.
You'll get plenty more of that on the bonus episode.
Yes. I will say I like the original story by Philip K. Dick that this is based on. The title of it, I mean.
Probably the better adaptation of a Philip K. Dick novel, huh?
Versus what? What are you throwing shade at?
Oh, I think we all know. Blade Runner.
Oh dear.
Boring Runner.
I will say Philip K. Dick stories have really good titles, because the story that Blade Runner is based on is called "Do Androids Sleep of Electric Sheep," right? Or "Dream of Electric Sheep," sorry, yeah. And then this one, roughly, I'm forgetting exactly how it's phrased, but it's "We'll sell you memories wholesale," or "We'll sell you your memories wholesale." It's a really good title. I'm like, oh, that's a really witty title that makes sense, and you know,
I've never read these like short stories or novellas, whatever they are.
Yeah, not me.
They've been, but they all have really fun titles. Yeah, they sound like they have a bit more humor in them.
Yeah, I can see it being more satirical as well, actually. Just with that title, which is funny because you think you'd put it up with Verhoeven, who did RoboCop, and it'd be perfect. I think this one is a bit more not dumbed down, but it's not as deep as RoboCop. I think RoboCop has so many, and we'll talk about RoboCop someday. I think RoboCop is an exceptional film.
Oh yeah, I agree.
RoboCop, like every time I watch RoboCop, like, you know, watching it as a kid and a teenager, and then like in my 20s or whatever, like RoboCop, every time I saw it at a new age, it like got like 10 times better, because every time it was like opening my eyes, like, wait, this is genius. This movie is doing so many great things that I could never have picked up upon as a kid.
Oh yeah.
Whereas this movie, well, I'm saying it is better than it was when I was a kid. It does have some of that effect. It's not to the same extent. It's not RoboCop.
Okay.
I'm actually I'm almost like, what's Sarah going to rate this? Every time I say it's not as good as this or that, she's like, okay, we'll see. All right. Incoming like 9.5 out of 10 from Tara at the end of the show, I'm guessing. We'll see. So anyway, so one of the things I want to say here, because this is the point where, you know, the bad guys show up, he fights Sharon Stone, and then showing up to save his ass as as Melina the brunette, right? And she fights Sharon Stone one-on-one. They have a bit of a proper kind of like, you know, fight, and eventually she's going to win, and Arnold gets a gun, and she's like, hey, you wouldn't shoot me, we still love each other, right, honey? And we're married. And she goes for her own gun, and he shoots her right in the head and goes, consider that a divorce. And he kind of smirks as he says it as well, and I'm like, you just killed someone. Like, maybe this leads to your theory more so, is that the way he just doesn't even, like, you know, he just kind of rolls off his back, he doesn't care.
Yeah, my theory's looking pretty good now, huh?
It's the certainty. It's the way you said, let's consider for a second that this isn't a dream. The sheer effing hubris.
That's me and Picard.
Yeah, that was just a reference to the recent Picard episode for anyone who's also watching those reviews. So, but they're together and they go to meet the boss man, and this is maybe one of the things that I have to critique about the second or the second 2/3 of the movie, is that like they mention it briefly on the news at one point early on, but it's not until it gets to Mars they really start sort of dropping these hints that there's some sort of resistance leader that's in hiding, that the agency wants to get to, that they want to kill him. This was Quail or something like that.
I think it starts with the M, I think.
Was it? Oh, okay.
Oh, I don't know. My phone died. Can't look it up.
But regardless, I do think like some more time world building, like maybe even. Well, this is the thing, right? Because one of my main reasons for why your theory doesn't hold up is that there's several scenes without Arnold.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. If it was all in his head, or you wanted the complete 100% ambiguity of it, maybe it is or isn't, I think everything has to be from Arnold's perspective. But there's definitely scenes in this where we cut to other characters having conversations. There's scenes later on where we see Michael Ironside with Cohagen talking about, oh, should I kill him now? You know, we finally at the point where I can kill him, and I'm like, what? You know, like, we shouldn't be seeing. If this was all in Arnold's head, we shouldn't be seeing this. That's argument number 3, right? That's my third argument.
Is it Cueto?
Ah, there you go, Cueto or something like that.
Cueto,
yeah.
George and Cueto.
There you go. So he so they go to meet him. They get a cab driver who goes with them. There's a bit of a shootout. There's kind of like a car chase, which is quite impressive because this is all sets. These tunnels and everything. The cars even as well. They're all props and sets, and you know, like it's quite cool how much they put into this. In terms of like building this stuff up, and you know, it's after this fight because they kind of escape through the strip club or whatever, and I think one of the neat things was when they first arrived here earlier, there was a moment where Arnold like met some mutants for the first time, and he met a little girl, and he gave the girl like a a coin or something like that. You know, it's like, hey, I'll tell you your fortune, because this is the thing. The mutants are psychic. They've all got telepathy, but they're all deformed, and that's kind of the trade-off. And he's really nice to her, so it makes us just know enough of these characters a little bit, so that when Cohagen just turns the air off in this section of the Mars, like, domes, you know, this sector, it makes us care a little bit that they're dying. It's like, oh shit, like there's innocent people down here.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely feel bad for the kids, and there's mothers there too, like real people, families and stuff. I was just looking over the IMDb and realized that one of the henchmen of Ironside is actually the main villain from Deep Space Nine. Mark Delimo plays Gold Dukat, but in the show he's always wearing Cardassian makeup, with the exception of one episode, or actually the 7th season and one episode.
Actually, Joe, who I noticed in this, and even though he's under makeup and much younger, I thought it was him, and I've just confirmed it. One of the sort of main sort of deformed guys in the strip club is a young Dean Norris from Breaking Bad. Hank from Breaking Bad.
Is he the one with the folds?
Yeah. He's got the sort of half of his face is kind of covered. Yeah. Yeah,
he looked familiar.
Yep, that's him. That's Dean Norris from Breaking Bad, who I believe is going to appear in Better Call Saul in the coming seasons. So that's exciting.
Dean Norris was also in Star Trek.
Of course, everyone was in goddamn Star Trek.
He was in Deep Space Nine. Yeah, he's one of the aliens on a planet that is at war for eternity.
Every bit actor from the 80s and 90s was on a Star Trek show at one point, because there was just Star Trek shows on the whole time.
Yep. The golden age.
Yeah. Well, I mean, maybe
of everything.
Maybe entering a new golden age, given that CBS All Access want to pump out Star Trek every week of the year.
Yep.
Getting to that point.
And I give them money so they can do it.
The sheer effing hubris of CBS All Access. So it's the bad guy from Twins who ends up having like another person on his stomach, and that's the real like hero, the Resistance.
Yeah, it's like his twin.
Yeah, and he's like a strong telepath, and he looks into like Arnold's head, which is actually a really weird. I have a lot of faults with this scene here, mainly the fact that they want to do this because we keep hearing that the bad guys found something in like a pyramid on Mars, right? Something ancient that aliens left behind, and it's all rumors and hearsay, and we don't know what it is. And he looks into Arnold's head to see what it is, because he knows, right? That's the whole thing, is that he has secrets that they don't want getting out. And it does this thing where the camera like swishes around as if it's like in his head, and it finds the bad guys, Michael Ironside and Cohagen, talking in this place, and it turns out it's like a generator, which if turned on, in theory, would actually basically terraform the planet and make it breathable. It's lucky that these aliens that built this also had the same requirements, oxygen wise that Earthlings do, but whatever. Neither here nor there. So, and I'm also going to go out on a limb here and say that there's more to making Mars like livable than just having oxygen in the atmosphere. I feel like the pressure and things like that.
This version of Mars, which is in Arnold Schwarzenegger's head, has a core that is in ice. And when the ice is released, it releases oxygen.
See, I read that as just goofy 80s or 1990 writing rather than a intentional, this is in his head, so it's silly.
It's a bit open-ended. You can interpret it both ways, but I think one way weighs a little bit heavier. Yeah.
When Tara's right, she's right, even when she's wrong. Except in this case, when she's wrong.
I think you're just a little bit embarrassed that you didn't realize that this was the whole movie.
I'm not embarrassed. I don't think there's anything definitive that proves you're right.
What about the guy saying blue sky on Mars? That's an interesting touch. Before he goes under.
Look, that's the one thing I can't explain. I can't explain that line. But there's so much other things that you can't explain to me. So it's ambiguous, all right? You can take it.
You're right. I can't explain why there are scenes where the where Arnold is not in it, but we get the scene.
Well, actually, hold on. This is where I'm coming to with this scene, actually. Not only do we scenes that Arnold's not in, from the perspective of if this is all in his head, we shouldn't see scenes that he's not there for. But this scene in particular, Quato, because inside
he's looking for a memory that Arnold's not in.
He's not in the memory. He's not there. It's only the other bad guys.
Oh, so I guess it is consistent with this program then, huh? Interesting.
Wait, are you trying to spin this into evidence that you're right? I am not accepting this.
Consistent.
Consistent, my ass. This is some spin doctoring nonsense right now. This is bullshit. So they get bad guys show up. They look at these big drills. I actually like these things. They've got these big, like, it's like multiple drill heads on these big, like, trucks or tractors that are constantly cutting through the rock. I guess it makes sense that everything in Mars is underground, or at least a lot of it is, so they're constantly tunneling with these trucks. And they go on the run, and this is where we get another big one-liner that I love, because it basically they're betrayed by the cab driver, who, even though he's a mutant with like a weird, alien arm, he's just a greedy person who...
It's a cool effect. I love all, like, the prosthetics in this movie, but like the arm, how it like folds out, and he's got three fingers at the end.
The arm looks great. Quato, well, this the stomach person, right? The head of the resistance.
Also looks great.
Yeah, it's grotesque but great. Well, I think the only critique
it's hard to look at.
The only critique I'd have is when it first appears, it's clearly a fake head for the real guy up top as well, and he looks kind of weird. The funny thing is, though, is that even though it took me out at the moment, I can headcanon it as when he gives like the other entity, like the floors that were, he kind of shuts down up top, so that's why it looks different. Because it didn't look bad from like a realism perspective; it just looked really different to who the actor looked like. It looked his face kind of sucked in. But even though that doesn't look perfect, it still kind of has a charm to it that holds up because it's there and it's practical and it's in the scene. So even though it's not perfect, it still works. So practical effects people.
I love all the look of all the mutants. Like, some of them are kind of hard to look at because they're just so grotesque. I think the baby man inside the other man is also one of those things. But you're right. It adds a weird charm to the film. No. Because it is so practical. It is a real thing that looks like Arnold can touch if he wants to and interact with. And I like the scene when if it was the baby thing like reveals itself, because the guy's like walking away to presumably go get the Katu or whatever his name is.
Klaatu Verada Nectu.
No, not that. Don't summon anything. But like the actor just kind of stops, like, and starts like screaming, and then like pulls open his shirt.
Now, I think I've asked. I think we've talked about this before, and you've said no. But you didn't watch Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles growing up, did you?
Yes and no. My brother watched it, and I watched whatever my brother watched. So. Right.
So this made
I've definitely seen all the movies.
This made me think of Krang a little bit, because if you remember the villain, not Shredder obviously, but like because he was a ninja one, but Krang in the Technodrome, it was like a body with like a head in the middle
inside of it.
So it was making me think of that. So then I was also thinking of that because then these big drills come through, and if you remember the Technodrome, their moving vehicle had drills on it. It was drilling through the earth. So there was some.
It's good to use some inspiration there.
Yeah, some weird Turtles kind of vibes.
I was thinking a lot of the mutant designs in Futurama for the mutants that live underneath the sewers of New York.
I think
they were inspired by this.
I think the Turtles movies are sci-fi enough to do on this show. I'm just going to say it. They're mutants.
Do we have to do the Michael Bay produced one?
Nah, we can just do the first three. I've not even seen it. I got 20 minutes into the first Michael Bay one and was like, you know what, I'm good. I just stopped watching.
Yeah,
I couldn't do it. So they get caught here. This is the thing, because they've been betrayed. Quasar gets killed, And Iron says it right. Okay, Cohagen wants to see you, so they bring him up to the office. And this is the big bad guy explains the plan, and he's like, this is the thing. You're actually a bad guy, and you were just pretending. So basically, we erased your memory so you'd be because this is the thing. Because all of the resistance are full of mutants, so a lot of them are telepaths. They could always tell when there was a mole. They always knew when someone was meant harm to them. So we erased your memory. This was a voluntary thing so that you could infiltrate them, and we've already set up the plan so that we could use the fact that you do this to get to them. And he's like, this is bullshit. And then of course he plays the video of Arnold saying, no, I'm a bad guy, you've got my body, I'm glad you didn't let me down and get killed, but I'm going to take my body back. And to me, this is the big twist of the movie, and why we don't need the other one. But it's possible. I'll give it to you. It's possible. But
thank you for entertaining my idea. But it's clearly spelled out in the movie.
Don't say it like that. Spelled out. You make it sound like, oh, you're such an idiot child for not immediately thinking this is it clearly.
Shoes on the other foot, huh?
I'm sorry. Have I ever belittled you in any of these reviews?
You brought up Close Encounters in this review.
Have I ever belittled you in these reviews in the last 10 minutes? I think not.
Let's move on.
So he's all heartbroken about this because he's really a villain, and I think there's something interesting. I guess maybe this is why I don't jump to the whole simulation thing, is because I kind of like the moral of the story here, where it's like, no, you are this bad person, but you don't have to be that. Basically, you've become this other person now, and because you know right from wrong, because you've met the people who this is affecting, you've met the innocent people who are dying because Cohagen's an evil prick, you've met you're not just in it for profit like this original Arnold was, you're choosing to be better. There's something beautiful about that. I mean, I don't think the movie's like quite got the tact to really give us the heartfelt swoosh it needs, but I think there's something beautiful about that story.
You mean like because it's because Arnold's on the video and he's like hugging the bad guy afterwards, like, we're evil. It's so Verhoeven.
Oh, it is. It's really Verhoeven. Yeah, even the fact that there's like 3 screens, it's even RoboCop, because RoboCop has scenes where there's like 3 screens like side by side, and yeah. So they're actually going to reinstate his old memories and bring him back. And there's a funny moment where Ironside's like, hey, I glossed over the... Oh no, I didn't. No, the screw thing comes later because it's after the escape. I was mixing my scenes up here. He's like, hey, when he gets his memories back, will he remember all this part? And the doctor's like, nah, he won't remember a thing. He's like, oh good, and he punches him in the face. He's like, I'll see you at the party, Quaid. Yeah, Arnold's skull. Do you know what the funny thing is? It's not even the most sadistic or most intense Arnold skull, believe it or not, isn't in one of his action movies. Having recently watched Jingle All the Way, it's in that.
I believe it.
There's a moment in Jingle All the Way.
Did Sinbad deserve it?
No, it wasn't Sinbad. I'm sure it wasn't. It was it's when he goes to the fake Santas and they've got a Turbo Man for him, and it turns out to be a knockoff that breaks apart, and he just sort of looks up at him really slowly. That's the skull. Like, because I was watching this scene going, that's a good Arnold skull. But it's not as good as Jingle All the Way. Because I just watched it at Christmas. I watched it on stream at Christmas, so it's quite fresh in my mind. Yeah, do you know what? Maybe you have to be of a certain...
Christmas movie.
Yeah, maybe you have to be of a certain generation, right? But Jingle All the Way is like top 5 material, right? I'm just going to put it out there. Top 5 Christmas movie material. I'm just going to say it.
Yeah, that one, Hateful Eight, Die Hard.
I agree with all. Home Alone, you have to put in Home Alone.
Home Alone. I really like Christmas Vacation.
No, I like that too. I can get on board with that. Christmas Vacation's good. I think it's the best vacation movie.
The first one's pretty good.
The first one's good, but I like Christmas more. I saw one of the other two, but I never saw I don't know if it was the third or the fourth one I saw, but I didn't know I liked the one I saw.
European and Vegas.
Yeah, I don't know which one it was. I think I saw European.
They're about on par with each other.
Yeah, but they're both definitely weaker than the
yeah,
other
not
two.
bad, but yeah, not as strong.
Yeah. So obviously Arnold, this is a really violent scene. Arnold, like, he pulls at the entire like arm thing, because he's clasping with his arms, and he pulls the entire arm out, and it's like a giant screw or like pin.
I think he like literally broke the metal beam that was underneath it, just some kind of a pole.
So there's this big thick screws coming down from his wrist from this thing that's all around his arm, and he just stabs the doctor on the neck with it, and it's actually quite violent. And there was only one moment in this movie where I could almost feel the edit, where I think they had to trim down the violence to get the R rating, and it's in this scene because the last person he kills in this scene, you see him kind of like with another pole once he's free, like, you know, sort of like slash, you sort of like stab it towards someone, and in the next shot, for a split second, you see this guy fall down, and it's like it's went through his face, like through his eye, and then coming out of his mouth. It's like really violent looking, but it's only a split second. But it's so quick and abrupt the way it cuts away from it that I'm like, there was more of that, and you had to take it out for censor
That looked
reasons.
like a lot of makeup work. They were going to keep that in there for longer, for sure.
Yeah, it looked really impressive from the quick glimpse you get, but
that scene in particular like really stood out to me too. It was extra violent. It was like Murphy getting his hand shot off violent. Like, ooh, you almost want to look away, even though you know it's over the top, and there's like a cruelty aspect to it when you're watching it.
Yeah, or later in that movie when one of the bad guys gets doused in acid.
Oh yeah,
it's boiling acid.
It's gonna be fun to talk about that one.
Yeah, the RoboCop series is going to be an interesting one, because even though the sequels aren't necessarily, well, honestly, 2's not bad actually from memory, but
I don't even recall the last time I watched 2. It's probably been since I was very young.
It's a weird. 2's a weird movie because it's got this weird structure of subplots where everything's just a subplot on its own, and then it just kind of all stitches together. And then 3's the 3's the one that I liked as a kid, because it's exactly got the mentality of that a kid would like, but when you watch it as an adult, that's just kind of goofy and fan service and all these other things.
Can't wait.
Let's give him a jetpack.
Oh, I think I have seen that.
Oh yeah, and there's like evil like Japanese katana wielding robots that look human. Yeah, it's a whole thing.
Can't wait.
So they get out, and this is when Benny the cab driver like shows up in one of these big drill like trucks, and he's got them pinned down. He's going to like drill them, and it's one of these over the top things where it cuts back to him in the cockpit of this machine. And every single time it does, he has some like, "I'm gonna drill you, sucker! I'm gonna drill you," and he keeps over and over again saying what he's going to do as he's driving towards them slowly. Of course, Arnold finds himself a big drill of his own, not as big as these big, you know, industrial like rock drilling bits, but
no, it's more of a what's it called? Like for breaking apart rock and asphalt and stuff.
Yeah. It's a lot more similar to what he was using on the construction site earlier. It's not the exact same thing, but it's a similar size and sort of idea. And he sort of drills through the side of this truck until it gets to him. And of course, as he's doing this, he says, "Screw you."
Screw you. I can't do it. Screw you. I can't do it.
So that's a one later, and I mentioned the one where he's using the hologram because it's around this point when we get the scene of them sort of dancing around these drums, because at this point they're trying to get to the reactor. Because this is the thing. See, if you'd asked me a week ago what the ending of Total Recall was, like, I remember the air being turned off and them trying to turn the air back on and all that, but I would never in a million years have said, "Oh, there's like an ancient artifact left by aliens that's going to." I would never have remembered
this is like
that.
Watching the movie for the first time.
I know, it's so weird.
I mean, I just remember the faces.
Yeah, and you know, Ironside's finally pleased because he gets to kill. He's been given the go ahead to kill him now because he's too much trouble. But. And Ironside's death's pretty good as well, because he's going up in this elevator that's going up to where the artifact entrance is, and Ironside's dangling off the side of this elevator, and I talk about good one-liners. Oh, this is not funny on its own. This is only funny because of context, because early on Ironside, after he punched him,
after he punches him,
"Yeah, I'll see you at the party, Quaid," right? what's his name here so I can get the Richter's the Ironside's name. Richter's actually quite a good name, but Ironside's such a good name that I'd never use his character names. He's Ironside, but he's diagonal off the elevator, and then it gets to the top, and like Arnold holds onto his arms so he can't like escape, and this like top cave section like basically just separates his arms from his body, so we have an armless Michael Ironside falling to his death with blood squirting.
So good.
And Arnold just says, "See you at the party, Richter."
See you at the party, Richter. And he throws his arms out that he's still holding on to.
Oh dear, this movie's great.
This movie's so good.
It's not as tight as some of like I say, like so much of the stuff with like the leader of the resistance and these alien artifacts, so much of this is like introduced so late in the movie it feels kind of shoved in there, and that actually, and I'll admit it, this actually lends credence to your theory that it's all inside the simulation, because all of it feels kind of forced in once he's getting deeper into it, as opposed to being sort of spaced out gradually, and it feels, because the pacing feels a little bit strange in that sense. But I mean, there's so many good moments in this movie, like Arnold just be doing Arnold things and one-liners and violence, and even just the sci-fi world. Like, I love how everything looks, is the Mars sets, all that stuff.
It's just so like, is there any CG? I don't think there is.
There's a couple of optical effects. I don't know about CG. I don't think there's any CG. Yeah. But it's one of those things where someone might say, well, technically there was 2 CG shots, you just wouldn't notice them because they're subtle, because it was just this one little thing.
I mean, still, it's 1990. It would have probably been like pre-CGI, with the exception of like
the Abyss
backdrops. But even still, some of them felt like matte paintings. Oh
yeah, they look more like they're definitely like green screen or whatever, because you can kind of tell with the way it frays around the hair, because at the start of the movie when they're in their apartment and they've got the big giant TV screen on and like Sharon Stone's in front of it, there's kind of like an edge to the people standing in front of it. You can kind of, in these older movies when they're doing like green screen stuff,
it's almost like a black outline.
But I wouldn't call that's not CG though. That's just superimposing an image in behind someone else. That's not that's not computer generated. They might use computers to pull it off, but it's not generated by computer, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, the Abyss had already the Abyss was a year before this, and that was like not the first, because technically the first time CG was used was like 1980 or something like that, and it was something really, there was like wireframes, because the thing was just supposed to look wireframes, so it could just be wireframes, and at the time that was cutting edge. I think the Abyss is the first example of like a full kind of like character effect, because that was like the waterhead, and then
coming out of the waterfall.
And then of course Terminator 2, Cameron's next film, was really the one that said, hey, CG's here to stay. And then even Spielberg was going to use stop motion animation, and then the CG guy said, nah, look at this, and they're like, oh yeah, CG it is.
Poor stop motion guys were extinct.
Put them out of the job. I think you mean extinct. So look at me, I'm going Jurassic Park again. Not Hammond Lines though. I've not done Hammond Lines. I'll save that for when we get to Jurassic World. Not that he's in it, but at least it's related. So
there might be a hologram. I can't remember.
Nah, there's no hologram of him. You get Mr. DNA though.
Oh really?
Yeah, remember Mr. DNA from the instructional video, whatever it was in the first one?
Is that the hologram?
I don't think it was a hologram.
I haven't watched the movie in a long time.
There was kids watching like a screen, and it's like Mr. DNA is explaining the DNA stuff on the screen. It was a nice little callback.
That makes sense. There's a lot of fan service in that movie. Not that I really mind it though.
Yeah,
we'll get to it.
Yeah, we'll get to that. I mean, I've got thoughts on that, but I mean, I'll save that for when we actually talk about it, which will probably be a lengthy 2-hour discussion, because it's a Jurassic Park movie, and that's what we do with Jurassic Park movies, and apparently Total Recall. I actually have no idea how long this has been. This might be just over an hour so far, or it might be closer to 2 hours. I have no idea. But
we might be able to edit out some tangents.
So they get up to the thing, and there's like a face-off with Cohagen. If I was going to critique something in the movie, is I like both like Ronny Cox, who plays Cohagen, and obviously I like Michael Ironside, who plays Richter. I think in the movie it does kind of make it feel like Ironside's the more important villain. So having the final showdown with Cohagen feels a little bit like the wrong way
But the
round.
same thing happens in RoboCop, though, right? Ronnie Cox is the baddie, but really
True.
we're there for, what's his face with the glasses.
Yeah, I mean, I think that works better though, because that's because that's not the final fight. That's like more of an epilogue to the movie than it is, because the final fight's with the main bad guy, whereas this is like the actual standoff is with him. But so he's trying to get to him to stop him from turning on into things, but then like he gets sucked out of this big pipe and all the commotion, and so we see the bad guy, like, his eyes bulging out and popping out of his head, and the tongue and the face. These prosthetic effects are absolutely phenomenal. These heads,
I mean, they really hold up. Yeah. They are so grotesque, and you can't look away, and they really look like the normal faces that are just expanding.
Do you know what I think? Maybe what's helping this is that because it's like got that harsh red light, because they're meant to be out in Mars, maybe that's helping kind of disguise it a little bit. But yeah, it looks great. And Arnold, they're both dangling because the air's kind of sucking them to the outside through these big pipes, and Arnold just gets to the middle, puts his hand on here on this, like, I love to turn this on. It is just this one hand on this thing, and that's it, it's on. And so they get sucked outside, but he's turned it on, so they start to bulge up and all that.
There's a timer.
But there's like air, like explosions happening, and like the ABC, like, actually, Joe made me think of this: the big metal rods, these hot metal rods get into the ice. We've got to guess. What do you think it made me think of?
I don't know. I know I'll know when you say it.
They also referred to this as a reactor. Does that give you a clue?
Oh, okay, yeah.
It was giving me Chernobyl vibes just watching these metal rods, like hot metal rods, go into the thing. Now, obviously, this is the opposite. In Chernobyl, there were cooling rods going into the hot thing, but it's same different. Like, visuals similar.
This is what triggers the activation. Maybe this design was based off of a nuclear power plant.
Yeah, that makes some sense.
They kept talking about a meltdown. That will happen.
Yeah, it is kind of hard to believe that in the space of about 2 minutes, when this machine gets turned on, the entire planet becomes completely terraformed. Like, that's a bit much. So, but it's kind of fun,
unless
though.
It was programmed that way.
Yeah. But obviously, all these like clouds and whatnot, they're very harsh, and they smash all the windows of the domes. Again, these domes aren't built to stand in. What's going on here? But luckily,
they're made from sugar.
But all the people who are in these places that are dying, all the people in the strip club and all that we've kind of gotten to know at least a little bit, they all get saved by this because the oxygen is coming to them. Now, I guess we never mentioned as well that part of the reason why, because Cohagen keeps saying that this could cause like a meltdown that'll destroy everything, but what he's really doing is that he actually controls all the airflow and gets paid for all of it. So this is purely like a satirical, like, he's the evil businessman who's doing this for his own benefit, and it's like, no, air should be free, we're going to make the oxygen free. So here we go. Makes sense. And it's a common theme for sci-fi. Even The Expanse in like season 1, like the outer like space stations that are on the asteroids and stuff, like air and water both cost. Like, you have to pay for air and water because you're on a station. Like, it doesn't.
These are luxury products. Yes.
Yeah. So,
or like in Spaceballs, when they have the can of air they open and sniff.
Yes, I went to one of the modern examples of science fiction excellence.
Whoa.
And you go to
Spaceballs.
And you go to. I've never seen Spaceballs, so I can't. I have no opinion on it.
What? It is sci-fi. It is on our list.
We can do Spaceballs. I feel like we can't do Spaceballs until we've done at least the original Star Wars movies, though.
What a great way to close it out.
Because it's. I mean, I've not seen it, but from what I have seen clips wise,
there's a Police Academy joke in there.
Are you trying to sell me? You think Police Academy will get me hooked? I'm like, oh, you know, it's Police Academy.
The guy who does the sound effects. It's the Police Academy guy.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember his name.
You know who I'm talking about.
I want to say his character's Winslow. I could be wrong though.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think he may even have the same character name in the Spaceballs movie. Yeah,
Winslow. Then you got you get Tackleberry, who's like the sort of taller gun nut, and then you've got Proctor's like the henchman to
Somehow your knowledge of Police Academy movies are going to come up in every review. I love it.
Oh, what's the blonde with the big boobs who's like the drill sergeant?
I don't know. I don't watch these movies.
She always ends up having sex with one of them. I can't remember all the names. I remember some of their names. Then there's a little woman who's got a really quiet voice, but the joke is that when she gets angry, she shouts really loud.
Mm-hmm. Classic. All right, let's move on to rating here.
We can move on. Yeah, we're pretty much done. So they're all happy, and it ends with them kissing, and everyone's like, "Hey, free air on Mars." Fade to white, as you previously pointed out.
Yes. After Arnold says, "Oh no, what if it's all a dream?"
There was no such line.
Yes, there was.
Oh, did he actually say that? Okay, I thought you would. If anything,
She says, "Well, then you better kiss me before the."
Oh,
dream
you're right. Yeah, she says that. You're right. But here's the thing: him saying that makes me lean towards it's not a dream.
Yeah.
It's too on the nose.
Why?
It's too, well, see, here's the thing: the reason why he's having dreams of this woman is because she's in his memory, and that's why. Like, you know, but it's because he's having all these hints and flashbacks subconsciously of his real life that he thinks about Mars, that he thinks about this woman. It's why she looks exactly like that. Now, why she looks like that on the TV screen at the recall place, that's just bullshit movie stuff. I can't explain that.
Well, also, it's as he's being, like, sedated, so he's kind of, like, it could just be a projection, you know,
okay,
from his own mind.
Yeah, okay, we're seeing what he sees rather than what's really on the screen. Yeah, I get that.
Yeah, I think there's enough in there to like make a claim for either side, but I really think that it's leaning heavy into my side here.
Like,
but there's enough little things to like throw you off.
That's what I say. Why can't you just actually present it as 50-50? You said, "Oh, I think it could go either way," but there's enough little things.
The blue sky thing is.
Look, the blue sky thing is good, but I have given you several reasons why it doesn't quite add up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think they're there to throw you off.
Look,
but I do think that it's all a dream.
Can't you just be happy that Arnold Schwarzenegger in this movie wants to dump Sharon Stone for the curly haired brunette? Can you not just feel happy about that and just feel uplifted and let me win?
Arnold doesn't have female preferences. Arnold likes women. Have you not seen Pumping Iron?
I'm coming here.
All women.
I'm coming there.
Big
I'm coming
women,
everywhere.
small women, big boobs, small boobs. They're all good.
What was that accent at the end there? That wasn't an Arnold voice. That was.
Oh yeah, that's Arnold. Yeah, that's a direct quote.
That was like, I don't know what accent that was meant to be at the end, but
sometimes Borat slips in.
I'll just do a Borat voice every time I try to do Arnold then, see if that works.
My wife.
Hasta la vista, baby. I'll be back. High five.
High five. They're too opposite.
Yes. Whereas you seem to think Borat and Wonder Woman sound exactly the same. I've not rewatched anything with Wonder Woman in it, you know, like the Gal Gadot version.
Well, you will be this summer.
So. I will be, yes. So I'm a little worried that because you've said this to me that I'm going to be watching it and just hear Borat now, and it's going to distract me and I'm going to be upset by it. So I hope not, but we'll see.
Maybe I've made it better.
Okay. All right. So yes, we're going to rate Total Recall, and I think you'll find that Tara believing she won the debate on this episode was nothing but a fake memory, and we're going to revert to the original real Tara right now, and she's going to hit us with a rating.
I think it's a 9. I'm giving it a 9. It's not getting the coveted 10. Not even the 9.5. There are some things in it that are like I don't know, that are okay. It kind of slows down for me a little bit. I don't know why, because a lot's happening. But when they go into like the resistance area, I get a little bit bored until I see the
No, I agree.
mutant stuff.
Well, this is what I was saying earlier about the pacing feeling kind of weird because it kind of doesn't pace that stuff out properly.
But I do really like the idea that this is all a dream. And maybe that's why I'm rating it so high. Like I think this movie's a lot better than I remember it being as a kid. Like I said, I've seen this movie so many times I can think of all the really special scenes and quote all the one-liners, but there's a lot that I missed watching it when I was younger.
Yeah, so just to clarify, the sequence of like the memory events in this. So Arnold goes to get these fake memories. The people putting it in discover that his memory's already been erased. And then he thinks he's this guy from Mars who turned sides. But what actually happened is that the real villainous Arnold voluntarily erases memories to be a good mole. But now good Arnold is become essentially a fully functional person.
It's just a complete coincidence that he chose secret agent on Mars for his 2-week vacation.
It's not a coincidence.
He wants to defeat the bad guy, get this girl, and then save the entire planet, which also turns blue.
It's not a coincidence. He seeks out secret agent because it triggers something in him because he's like he subconsciously remembers being a secret agent. It speaks to him.
Yeah, that's true. That could be an interpretation.
You're being such a bitch right now.
I think you're just slightly humiliated. Feels good up here on top of the hill. I think I'll stay a while.
Okay, so in your interpretation, then this movie ends with him turning into a vegetable with
being
a face to white.
lobotomized. Yeah, as he was warned, was a risk at the beginning. I think this is very much like the Black Mirror episode Replay, with the guy who goes into the virtual reality game.
Sure, but the difference is in that you feel like something's up the entire time, you're questioning things. This movie, I feel like, just quickly gets past that and it's just an adventure sci-fi Arnold movie and doesn't...
Yeah, but then it sprinkles it in every now and then. We get the Star Trek guy shows up, and then we get the lines of dialogue at the end.
Which is a ruse to trick him into giving up so they can do what they want.
Yep. That could be an interpretation.
If you say that could be an interpretation one more time. My rating, I don't think I can go quite as high as a 9, but it's a great movie and even better than I remembered it, so I'm going to give it the 8.5 out of 10. So hey, we had a couple of stinkers recently. It's nice to watch a good movie, and
yeah, this is a good movie,
and you know, praise it throughout. That's nice to have that feeling. So that has been Total Recall. You can, of course, let us know what you think of the movie in the comments below and all that jazz. Oh, I didn't tell you it's coming next week, which I don't even really remember, if I'm honest. I'm going to have to go and check.
Oh yeah.
Yes, and I might actually swap something around here depending where I have something scheduled, because our vote that we had on Patreon that just ended was for romantic movies because of Valentine's Day, and it would make sense to do that earlier in the month, perhaps, so that it's closer to Valentine's Day.
Okay.
But we'll see. We'll see if
Well, I don't even know what won the vote.
Starman won the vote.
Oh.
It's next. Yeah, Starman is next. So yes, you can let us know what you think of Total Recall in the comments. You can like and subscribe, all that stuff. Get us on the Twitters at the Ace Podcast, and you can support us by rating the podcast on Apple Podcasts. Give us 5 stars and a nice review. More people will find us that way. You can support us financially, as we mentioned earlier. patreon.com/MailFuzzTV. And Tara, I think, should recommend another show or two that we do on MailFuzz TV. Something you want to recommend so they can go check it out?
I will recommend that the people check out the top 50 movies of the decade list, since you've been working really hard on those, and they are quite fun. They are you get everybody from MailFuzz TV and their top 50 films of the decade. We all worked hard on building our list, but Peter's done a good job of editing them together. So it's a 10-part epic miniseries from Wild Fuzz TV. Check it out.
In fact, the day this goes up on Patreon early, because these episodes go up a week early on Patreon at the $5 tier, is the same day that part 6 should be up for everyone of that series. And then by the time this goes out publicly, hopefully we'll be close to part 8. So that's the map right now of those episodes. They do take a lot of work, but they're good. I'm glad we did that. It's definitely opened up the eyes of doing more content like that in the future, of getting everyone involved and sort of editing everyone together and all that sort of stuff. But that is, let's go check it out. But that is the Atomic Cinema Experiment. Thank you very much for joining us. We always appreciate it. Keep watching science fiction films and computer. That's Elsa.
See you at the party, Richter.